Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
I want to give gratitude and honors to our acting Sheikh, Rashid Ibn Haliym-Bey, for a powerful demonstration on accountability and the importance of being what you know. A block of wood can point the way, but a leader must pave the way. Islam wars. We are leaders. Prophet stated that in the additional laws. You must send your children to study school and confirm themselves to the questionnaire, because out come from the Sunday school come what?
Guiders of the nation.
Guiders of the nations, more. So we are the guiders of the nation. All right. So, but in order for us to guide, we have to know the way. All right. It's no strange happenings, when the Sheikh staff comes to the rostrum and gives a measure that Allah had placed on their heart. And I'm always fascinated on how in sync the measures are. To our Grand Sheikh Haruban ACL's point, we never get together and discuss, what we're going to talk about. But it is something about the presence of the Elohim in the room that makes the message, that aligns our messages so that you can clearly understand. Because if we have the Sheikh staffs come here and give different measures and cause confusion, then how is that to prepare you to be guiders of the nation? So I give praise due to Allah and the 7 eyes of Allah, by way of the 7 eyes of Allah, that links our minds and our hearts together, so we may properly bestow upon you the instructions that was ordained to us by our holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I want to continue the conversation of nationality. I want to talk about our divine and national movement. I want to talk about identifying, or at least getting an idea of what it means to have or to speak on the Moorish Science Temple of America, the divine and national movement. We often discuss that the Moorish Divine and National Movement, or Moors in the Moorish Science Temple of America, they either do one or the other. They either do the divine side or they either do the national side. But our prophet specifically stated that this is a divine and national movement. So you have this word. How many of us are familiar with grammar? We talk about conjunction. All right. So that word "and" means that it's joined together. All right. So we have a divine and a national movement. So the question that I pose to you today, and we will answer this inshallah, is that what is the divine and national movement? Does anybody have any ideas on what the divine and national movement is? What does it consist of? None? Don't all raise your hand at once.
Islam.
Islam, what?
Again, I rise, giving all praise to Allah. Again, I rise, giving all praise to Allah, and the highest of honor to His noble and divine prophet, divinely prepared, Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
My idea as to what a noble and divine movement is.
Divine and national
Divine
movement.
and national movement.
Islam.
Okay. Divine and national movement is one where ones from different stations, both in life as well as around the world, if you will, are able to call upon one message, and similar to the golden thread that runs through the prophets, they are able to call upon that one message, which we call truth, and adhere to that truth and somehow vibrate and basically act in a manner that is conducive to actuating or to acting out that truth. And by them acting out that truth, they then call upon other members, other people to join the movement.
Islam. Is there anyone else? What are their ideas on the Moorish divine and national movement? What is it? What does it consist of? Islam more.
Islam, spiritual teachings and civic work.
Spiritual teachings and civic work. Okay. Islam. So, in Sunday school, we are discussing what? What are we discussing in Sunday school?
We are discussing the preamble, the Constitution in large sense.
Okay. Why are we discussing the Constitution?
Because, the Prophet commands that we enforce the Constitution. And we can't enforce what we don't know.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, cool. So, we are discussing the Constitution because we are American citizens. American citizens have to be aware of the laws, the rules and regulations, if you will, that are bestowed upon them, the rights and responsibility of the citizens of the United States. Prophet mentions that we are, or says that we are to proclaim your nationality. What is our nationality?
Moorish American.
Okay. Why are we Moorish Americans?
Because we're descendants of Moroccans born in America.
Okay. So what does that mean to us? To say that we're Moorish Americans, that we're descendants of Moroccans born in America, what does that mean? Yes, sir.
It's
That's all right.
It is teaching us, it is teaching us our nationality. First off.
Okay.
Second of all, it's teaching us that we have certain inalienable rights. And the Prophet has restored us back to the constitutional fold of government. So thus we know and we have these alienable rights that we did not know or call upon moving forward.
Okay. Islam. So, being that we're Moorish Americans, we are still Americans. So we have that right and responsibility to adhere to the Constitution. We have that right and responsibility to adhere to the Declaration of Independence. We have that right and responsibility to adhere to the Constitution of Georgia, because that's where we're domiciled. We're domiciled in the state of Georgia, correct?
Right. Islam.
Okay. So those are all the rights and responsibilities. If we want to know how to operate as an American citizen, it's bestowed upon us. We have that information. All right. Now, there's one issue, because there's a key on how to operate as an American citizen, but how do you operate as a Moorish American citizen? So that's one of the reasons why we have this institution called the Moorish Science Temple of America, because we have to understand what it means to operate not just as American citizens, but operate as Moorish American citizens. All right. Now, when we talk about the Constitution, the United States Constitution, our Grand Sheikh Haru, Rashid and myself, we both gave you all a lot of precepts. And I want to go over in brief a few of those precepts. All right. But before I do that, I want to read from the Moorish literature, because I want to put y'all in the mind state of Moorish divine and national movement. So I don't want to just talk about it. I want y'all to be familiar with it. All right. All right. So now we're going to start off with the very first article. All right. Because to know where you come from, or to know who you are, you got to know where you came from. All right. Unfortunately. All right. So we're going to start from the article, and I'm just going to breeze through this for the sake of time. The article is called "What Shall We Call Him?" All right. For those of you all that don't have the Moorish literature yet, please purchase one from the temple. It's very important to know the elements of the divine and national movement, and you get a good example of that by way of the Moorish literature. Islam? All right. What should we call him? So often our various journalists find trouble selecting a proper name for the Moorish American. Some say Negro, another will brand him race man, still another will call him Afro-American, and then come colored, dark American, coon, shine, the brethren, and your folks. It is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions where the title, pardon self, fading, where the title needs to be used. Is it that these people have no proper name? Did they have a national name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? If so, what was it? Did not the land from which they were forced have a name? It now appears a good idea for those whose duty it is to write for various journals to find out what the national name of the forefathers of these people was. Also look into the history of the founders of civilization and see who they were and where they stood in the building of the present civilization. Probably 2 hours in an up-to-date library would serve to relieve the strain on our men of letters. When the occasion presents itself for a title for these people, the matter of the various names given to these 22 million people with all colors of every race of the globe was an act of European psychology. For those who are taking notes, please write down European psychology if you are not familiar with it. All right. They gave him a name, then defined it as something inferior to theirs. White they defined as a color of purity. Black, they say, represents everything evil. The Negro, as they were called in this nation, have no nation to which they might look with pride. Their history starts with the close of the Civil War, or more properly, with his being forced to serve someone else. Thus, he is separated from the illustrious history of his forefathers, who were the founders of the first civilization of the old world. This matter should be looked into with the hope of correcting it. Islam or?
Islam.
All right. So first, we have a dilemma. The dilemma is, we as American citizens, we do not have we have an identity crisis. Because we know that, or some of us think that we're Americans, but we don't know what makes us Americans. We don't know all of the elements that is needed to become an American citizen. Because in order to become an American citizen, you have to first come from somewhere. You first have to come from a point of origin that connects you with the land and your creator. And as of right now, that's in limbo, because we refer to ourselves as Negro, black, or colored. And then it's stated that if we could refer to ourselves as a Negro or a black person, that we are tracing our histories back to what? Slavery. To slavery. Back to the point of the Civil War or the Emancipation Proclamation. We're placing our history, we're tracing ourselves back to a point where our God is the European. So that's the first issue. And again, I'm still talking about divine and national movement. There's nothing divine about a European naming another man what they aren't. It's nothing divine or national about a European telling you that you are no greater than the very chair that you're sitting in. That's the dilemma. So our prophet, all praises be to Allah, return to us our divine creed and our nationality. Because in order for us to truly have a nationality, we first have to have a divine creed. Why is that important? Why is that important to have a divine creed? Masterminds trace themselves back, thus they know. Are you a mastermind if you trace yourself back to, I'll even use my own name as an example. If I trace myself back to Wilhelm, a German, that's not a mastermind. That's a slave mentality. That's European psychology. That's systematic white supremacy. Systematic white supremacy. Getting tongue-tied. So that's the issue. So we're not going to be American citizens if we're still diluting to terms and concepts and actions that make us descendants of slaves, that make us property. An American citizen cannot be property. Islam was?
Islam.
All right. Now we're going to continue. For those who are not taking notes, please take notes. All right. We're going to draw from the Quran questions. I mentioned this last Sunday, and I got crickets. So this is one of the reasons why I'm going to give a better explanation. So we're going to draw from key 90 in our Quran questions, our catechism. All right. Key 90 states, can a man be a Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
Let me say that again. Key 90. Can a man be a Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
Key 91. Why?
Because man is made in the image and after the likeness of his Father God Allah.
Let me say that again. Key 91. Why?
Because man is made in the image and after the likeness of his Father God Allah.
Okay.
God Allah.
Islam. So we want to reference chapter 47 in our Moorish Holy Quran. Instructions 9, 10, and 11. Say Islam when you've gotten to chapter 47, instructions 9, 10, and 11. And we're going to use that in reference to keys 90 and 91.
Say that again, shoot.
Which part? Chapter 47.
Chapter 47, 9.
Once again, let me hear big Islam when y'all got here.
Islam.
Y'all sound like y'all work hard today. All right. Instruction 9. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, colored, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the holy land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. Instruction 11. There is no one, I repeat, there is no one who is able to change man from the descent nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Name a man on this planet Earth, on the planet Manifest, who is able to do that. Somebody raise their hand. I'll wait. Okay? So why are we continuously referring to ourselves to a name that someone else gave us?
Islam.
Let's think about that for a moment. Are we that complacent? Because that doesn't make us American citizens to just fall in line with what a European tells us who we are. It's not that easy. All right. So it is stated right here that we, as descendants of Morocco, or descendants of Moroccans born in America, we, as descendants of the ancient Canaanites, or the ancient Moabites. It's a bonus question. What does Moab mean?
Of the Father.
Of the Father. So we're stating that we're of the Father. You can't get any more to the root, to the source than that. Our prophet Noble Drew Ali was and still is a mastermind. He could have named us all different types of countries in Africa after the Berlin Conference. But he chose to name us what? Moorish American. We could have been Benin American. We could have been Dahomey American. We could have been Ghanaian American. But he chose Moorish American for a reason. Because if you're a Moorish American and you're considering yourself of descendants of Moorish, then you can trace yourself back to where it all began. Islam?
Islam.
Now that we have that out of the way, all right, we're going to go back to the Moorish literature. What time we got? 9:08. We're going to go back to the Moorish literature, all right? And we're going to go to the second editorial in the Moorish literature, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. And I'm only going to read certain parts of it, all right? I'm going to start with the very beginning first two paragraphs. Say Islam when y'all get there.
Islam.
All right, y'all with me?
Islam.
Okay. Divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. For those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classified as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. All right, I want to stop right there. All right, what does it mean to be free national, all free national? All right, for those taking notes. All right, now for those taking notes, we are not referring to the free national movement. All right, but just because we're not referring to it, I want you all to know what it is, because we got to separate truth from falsehood. All right, Yahamakallah. So the free national movement was founded, was a Bahamian, if you will, organization that was founded by a brother named Cecil Wallace in 1970. All right, this is not what our prophet Noble Drew Ali is referring to, because he clearly stated in the article the term free and national are both lowercase. So if you get any Moorish Americans or any brothers of a Moorish complexion, if you will, of a semblance, that say that he's referring to the quote unquote free national movement founded by Cecil Wallace, that's folly. That is emphatically now cipher. All right. So when we're talking about free national, he literally means free national government. He's talking about the American government. He's talking about the same American government that came over from British because they were looking to free themselves. That was the first Brexit. Think about that. You have these colonies, you have these groups of people that came over to the quote unquote New World, removing themselves from the British rule. All right. And after a period of time, they decided that they didn't want to be an extension of the British government, an extension of Europe. They wanted to be separate. They wanted to be free. But in order to do that, they had to establish forms and usages. They had to establish documentation that officially separates them or cuts ties from their bonds. All right? Are y'all with me? So don't get it twisted. The Moors had a play in that. All right? We're going to talk about that in a moment. But I just want you all to get an understanding of what the prophet is saying right here. All citizens of the free national government. So he's saying all American citizens. All American citizens bear that name, the one family name. You are Americans. I'm sorry, you are Americans. We may not like it. We may turn our nose up at it and may not like the situation. But guess what? We can change it. But you got to know who you are. The issue is that we don't know who we are, and therefore we don't know how to approach the issue.
Islam.
All right, we're trading on new waters, and it's always difficult. Again, we're going out to the cares of the world, so you got to know how to swim. All right, because otherwise you'll be classified as what? Undesirables. Because right now the plight of the so-called Black American or black people, if you will, is that they are removed. They are estranged, if you will, because they don't know which way is up. They want the rights of being citizens, but they don't know how to implement the responsibilities. They don't know how to engage and develop themselves as American citizens. They only know how to be descendants of slaves. They are dependent upon their master to this day. That is also, guess what? European psychology.
Absolutely.
All right, let me continue. Because this is the mistreatments. If I'm going to treat you, if you're going to treat yourself like a slave, then I'm going to treat you like a slave, a descendant of a slave. How many of us have heard of Stockholm Syndrome? I mention this all the time. That is the current state of the Negro. That's the current state of the black person living in America. And we have some people that say that. I'm not an American citizen. I'm not an American. I'm just a black man or a black woman living in America. So guess what? You're going to be subjected to all the inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the true citizens care to bestow upon you. So they see us treating ourselves like that chair where we just throw ourselves out. So they're going to treat us like the chair. We want to be masters of salvaging. We want to be Fred Sanford. We want to pick up the junk and make it treasure. That's what we want to do to the word nigger. Pardon my French. Now it's a term of endearment. Name one country, name one group of people that uses a derogatory term as a term of endearment. I'll wait. Because it doesn't exist. But see, again, that is the work that European psychology has put on us, because we don't know anything but to salvage the scraps. We take the pig, and if we get thrown the pig, we're gonna do what? We're gonna make something out of it because we gotta eat. Praise Allah for watermelon.
Praise Allah. That's right.
Contrary to popular belief. See, in order to break this hold and this yoke of European psychology, you have to go back to the mind of your forefathers. And in order to go back to the mind of your forefathers, you have to know how they thought. You have to know how they think. That is genuinely nationality. All right, let me continue. Any group of and it is a sin. It's a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that allude to slavery. All right? I'm actually going to stop right there. All right? Now, I want y'all to take some terms down. First term is divine. All right? For those who don't know, divine, pertaining to or of the nature or proceeding from God. It also comes from the word divus, or belonging to God. All right? National, pertaining to pertaining to a nation or a country regarded as a whole, established or maintained by the nation. What is a nation?
Islam. You said, what is a nation?
What is a nation?
Nation is, I would say, nation is that's nationality. Nation is a collective group of people that establish a nationality.
Okay, all right. For those who are taking notes, nation, a race of people, comma, a large group of people with common ancestry and language, all right, comes from the word natal or what is it? Nacius? Nacius? My Latin's not too good. Nacius, which means birth. All right. So that's a nation. All right. two words that you also want to take down as well, all right? Just soli and just sanguinis, all right? Law of the land and law of blood, all right? Now, here's another word, free. What is free? What is the definition of free? That's one of our principles, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. All right? Free, exempt from, not in bondage, acting upon one's own will. Interestingly enough, is the derivative of the word freer or priya, which means love or beloved. All right? So we have those three definitions. We have free, we have divine, and we have national movement. Okay? We have any questions so far? Okay? All right. We're going to still talk about this divine and national movement. Okay? Now, I'm going to jump to the last few parts of I'm not going to touch on this because that's a bigger topic. I'm going to go to a prophet makes a plea to the nation. The next article that's found on page 7. I'm going to read that whole one because it's a short article. Say Islam when we get there.
Islam.
Okay. Our divine and national movement stands for the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the prophet, am applying to all faithful Moors, members, and American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. Excuse me. For I have suffered much severely in the past through the misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. So even right here, the prophet has to continuously reiterate what this movement is about. Because as the prophet says, as it says in our most holy Quran, sometimes faith gets lost with belief. Belief gets lost with faith. So the truth even gets mixed up in that manner. So he has to remind us what this movement is and what it's about. Okay? It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names and answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the what?
United States of America.
United States of America. That is why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially in my great work I am doing to help this national government. For without a free national name, without a descent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. This is from your true and divine prophet unto all American and foreign sympathizers. All right. So the prophet was making a plea to all American outside of Moorish American sympathizers. All right. Because believe it or not, we're still all of one bearing one family. He just said that in the previous article. So we're all American citizens. So just because you're a Moorish, I'm one Moorish American and we got an Italian American, if the Italian American sees the Moorish American building up his communities, that way there's no crime in the streets. There's nothing, that's one less thing he has to worry about. That means he will get assistance. They do it all the time. It's called treaties. It's called reasoning. It's called agreements. These are the things that American citizens do. That's why we have a United States of America. They make these agreements. They make these adjustments. All right? Do y'all understand what I'm saying?
That's all.
All right. Now, just so I can assure us what we're talking about, a divine and national movement, I want us to turn to is it the last article? It is the last article. To the very last article in the Morse literature, it'll be found on page 18, where we're going to be drawing from page 21. Morse Leaders' Historical Message to America. And I want to drive home the proverbial hammer with this statement, because this statement is the cusp of of the divine and national movement. And then I'll get into some notes. Say Islam when we get there.
Islam.
Okay. Now, we're there?
Islam.
Okay. So I'm just going to read it in part. I'm going to read the very, not the second to the last paragraph. So I'm going to read the paragraph before it says, I am your affectionate leader. All right. So I'm going to start with in conclusion, just so we'll know where everyone is. In conclusion, I urge you to remember there is work enough for all to do in helping to build a better world. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. Islam was? All right. Now, just so I won't keep y'all on the ledge on what it is to have a divine and national movement, okay? In order to operate as American citizens, you have to have principles. You have to have virtues, all right? Nationality is defined as what? That quality or character which arises from a person belonging to a nation or a state. We have just defined what a nation was, have we not? Have we forgotten what nation was? All right. So that quality of character is your moral and your spiritual. Okay. Let me say that again. That quality or character is your moral or your spiritual. Your moral and spiritual. Because in order to operate or in order to get to that next level of your social and economic, you have to have principles first and foremost that don't delude to slavery. Because the principles that we have right now are deluding to slavery, so we're always going to have economic and social issues because we're still deluding to the principles that someone else gave us. We're still operating on European psychology. We're not operating from the station of our forefathers. So that's why we're having that problem. That's why we have to go back to the mindset of our forefathers. All right? So in a profound sense, it's moral and spiritual. Do y'all understand me? All right. So now I want to get us some notes. Now, these notes are going to be revisited when we go Sunday school, when we talk further about the Constitution. All right. Now, I want to give us a brief history of nationality, divine, the divine and national movements or divine or nationalities that also was in conjunction with a nationality or with the divine presence. All right. They've always been together. All right. Since the beginning of time. Give me an example. Or you want to know an example? Let's talk about our Canaanite forefathers. All right. Let's talk about Hemet or Mizraim. All right. They operated from a divine station. All right. And because they operated from a divine station, that trickled down to how they operated on the plane of manifest. Because those laws that they abided by, it was inspired by Allah. All right. And we can go through each and every one of the ancient cultures, the Persian culture. All right. We can go through, we can go all the way over to the other side, to West Africa. When we talk about the Ghanaian culture, the Ashanti culture, so on and so forth, they're operating from a divine nature. All right. And that divine nature also dictates the nature or the law of the land on how they operate and engage with each other. We have that as well. It's called your divine constitution and bylaws. All right. So nothing that we're saying is outside of the law or is odd or taboo. All right. So then we go into the ages of antiquity. All right. I want y'all to write down these words, and I'll be honest, and I want to give honors to my teacher, Grand Sheikh Ranisi Hill. Because when I was taking down these notes and compiling them and putting these things together, I realized even as I was learning on Auburn Avenue, deep cut in the past, these names. All right. So even if you don't get these names today, it's going to come back full circle. You know why? Because we measure time by cycle ages. All right. So the first name is Averroes. All right. Because now we're talking about nationality and we're talking about nationality in conjunction with a divine creed. Let me say that. I don't want to confuse you all. All right. So this began in ancient times, but it carried on to antiquity during the golden age of the Moors, 711 all the way up to 1610. All right. So you have these philosophers that are inspiring these Europeans that I'm going to name later on, to where they have the Protestant movement, to where you have the 95 Theses and so on and so forth. They were researching and they were studying up under Averroes. They were studying. Averroes' real name is Ahmad Ibn Rashid. I'll spell it for you. Let me know when you're ready. All right. Ahmad Ibn Rashid. All right. Rushud. He's also known as Averroes. All right. He was born in Cordoba, 1126 AD. All right. Then you have Alpharabius. All right. Alpharabius. All right. And then we have Avincia. All right. Avincinna. All right. Then we have Al-Ghazali. Alghazali. All right. Those were your Moorish philosophers. And now when we talk about Moorish philosophers during the golden age of the Moors, we're talking about these philosophers that studied Aristotle and critiqued Aristotle and evolved the teachings of Aristotle. Okay. If it wasn't for the Moors, they wouldn't have been able to decipher the Greek writings. All right. Because a lot of the Greek writings were derivatives of ancient Canaanite or Phoenician and Sanskrit. All right. So from those Moorish philosophers, you get John Calvin, or Calvinism. Calvinism started in 1552. You get Thomas Hobbes. All right. Thomas Hobbes wrote this pamphlet that I told you all about last Sunday called the Leviathan. All right. Then you get Martin Luther. All right. By Martin Luther, I want you all to write down the 95 Theses, or the critique of the Catholic Church. All right. Now, let me give some explanation behind this. This was a time where we were transitioning from a different form of government to more of a republic. All right. We measure time by cycle ages. So the age where we were going into either a partial monarchy or a complete monarchy, that was phasing out. All right. We were coming into an age where the people will have a say. All right. So this was an example. Even after the casting out of the Moors, you had the Roman Catholic Church. How many of us know what Catholicism is? What does Catholicism mean? All right. Catholicism means universal. All right. So let's think about that in context. So we're talking about the Roman Catholic Church, or the Roman Universal Church. So they already tell you what the intentions are already. Guess what that's called? European psychology. All right. So this is what's working on. But guess what? The Europeans themselves had a critique on that, because they knew that whoever controlled the divine right or the divine station had control over the national or the group of people. So in other words, whoever was the Pope, was the vicar, he had control over the king or the kings. All right. So they had to do away with that. All right. Now we coming into today. People will have you think that the concept of nationality started off over in Russia, dealing with the industrial period, where they were trying to salvage the workers. They were trying to prevent the industrial workers, the coal miners, so on and so forth, from revolting, because there was an issue of unions. This is before unions. All right. So for the uproar and the low pay and being misrepresented, they said, okay, well, if you're not going to do it for your money or do it for the money, do it for your country. So that's where the whole concept of nationality from the context of the contemporary period came through. Because then you get this mad scramble for resources for who could, or what nation or what group or country can better embody the industrial period. All right. So during that period, we transfer over now. We go back just one more time to that time of in the late 1600s. Going into the 1700s, where you have the Declaration of Independence. And this is where it comes full circle. Because when you talk about the Declaration of Independence, and you get this critique on the British government saying what they're not doing, it states that our people, that human beings that are endowed by their Creator have what? Certain inalienable rights. What are those rights? All right. So aren't you in that category of the human race? Because you are created, because you were made by your Creator. So why is there an issue of you being a Negro, black, or colored? There shouldn't be an issue, because that's what you're not. All right. So let me give you a secret. All right. You're proclaiming your nationality because you have to know that you have a nationality. It's already there. You have to proclaim it. You have to make it public. You have to go out there and get it. You have to go out there and make something of it. Just like the brother Raphael said, the nationality is not an object. This is not the nationality. This teaches you your nationality, but that's not the nationality. It's the ideas that's bestowed and that's shared amongst us that make us want to go out and work. All right? So that's the idea that we have. That's what makes you, that's what raises you up. It's nothing deep. It's nothing complex. That's just what it is. And you have those rights. You have that privilege. You are afforded those rights as American citizens. But in order for you to be American citizens, you have to know where you came from. And that's just the bottom line. That's what makes it the divine and the national movement. Does everybody get me?
Islam.
All right. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
Islam. Again, I rise, giving all praise to Allah and the highest of honors to His noble and divine prophet, true Ali. Islam. My question is, and this might be better explained or better placed in Sunday school, but I wanted to know why. I've heard in lecture that it changed from life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I wanted to know if you could speak to that.
The Grand Sheik may be familiar with that. I don't know, but what I will tell you to do, I want you to research Thomas Hobbes. All right, because Thomas Hobbes, it is said that Thomas Hobbes was the person who, I'm sorry, not Thomas Hobbes, part itself. John Locke. Research John Locke. John Locke is said to have added the term life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because at one point he was against removing himself from the British government or from Great Britain. You had ones that were anti-colonists. They still had hope for Queen and country. So you had those who, when they started to draft the Declaration of Independence, that were against the document itself, but they later on they compromised, but they had to ensure that these inalienable rights, the idea of you being of Allah creating you, and being that Allah created you, He afforded you these inalienable rights. All right, and so that's why I mentioned in the Sunday school really briefly that the idea of the government that we have now was not initially it. We were supposed to go out and just grind and get it. The only thing that the federal government was supposed to do was just protect us. We was supposed to just protect our welfare, because they're doing what? Providing for the common defense. All right. So as American citizens, because this is where you kind of start to split hairs when we talk about quote unquote the sovereigns, because I don't want to say it because I don't want to cause confusion, but the ideology of being self-sufficient is there. So when you get into the ideology of being self-sufficient, the government is not supposed to provide you with any assistance. The communities and the nations within those communities are supposed to do that. That's why you have these states, all right? Because the states are supposed to form their own constitution and their own ideas on how to develop industry and so on and so forth. And then within those little pockets of that state, you have towns and so on and so forth, and they were supposed to provide for themselves, and they're supposed to do business for themselves. That's why our prophet continuously tells us to be industrious, because that is one of the responsibilities that's needed to be American citizens. You're not an American citizen if you're not industrious. You know, and this is going past my ears as well. Working for somebody else does not make you industrious, because you're providing for someone else. All right. So this is the important. These are the principles that need to be reiterated and reinforced by us. All right. So not only are we supposed to reinforce the divine constitution and bylaws, but we're supposed to know and embody the U.S. Constitution so we can know what our rights are, and genuinely exhibiting keys 1 through 4, because that's what keys 1 through 4 are. They're to first remove you from being Negro, black, and colored, but to also remind you that you have these inalienable rights. Islam?
Islam.
All right. So again, Brother Akil, research John Locke, and if you research John Locke, inshallah, it'll open up. You'll be able to find a path to the answer that you needed. All right. Do we have any other questions? All right, family. I appreciate you being attentive. Did y'all learn anything?
Islam.
Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.